What's up guys, I'm Ross Thomas for the Brotographer.com and I am stoked to bring to you possibly the most anticipated lens for portrait shooters in the last 5 years, the Sigma 85mm f1.4 Art. Ever since in 2012 when Sigma released their 35mm f1.4 Art series lens, the portrait world has been clamoring for the same art style lens but in the 85mm focal length. A few months ago when Sigma announced that they were going to release the 85mm Art Series lens, pre-orders sold out everywhere. Sigma was kind enough to send me out a review copy and I've been using that for about the last 10 days. The only other real contender, in my opinion, especially for Canon shooters, which I primarily am for portraits, was the Canon 85mm f1.2 version 2 lens. Now that lens has been out for many years and is getting a little bit long in the tooth. However, it has long been known as an awesome renderer of colors and possibly gives the biggest pop or 3D effect out of all the 85mm that I've personally used. So I was really curious to see if we got any of those same properties and characteristics from the new Sigma 85mm Art lens. Now the Canon 85mm 1.2 has long been known as a gigantic chunk of glass, and some people don't like it because it's a little bit too heavy. Now for me, I really don't care how big the chunk of glass is on the front of my lens. I just want it to perform amazingly. Now Sigma has pretty much pulled out all stops with their new 85mm Art. It has a front filter thread of 86mm, so it's gigantic. 70-200 that I'm shooting with on this view right here has a front filter thread of 77mm and it's a pretty big lens. So 86mm is going to cause you some problems if you're someone that uses filters on the front of your lens, so you're going to have to think about investing in bigger filters there. So just keep that in mind. However, the price of this lens compared with something like the 1.2 from Canon is much less at about $1,200, so you are going to have a little bit of money to spend on filters if you need them. However, I personally wouldn't use filters on this lens. I would just invest in a flash that can shoot TTL with high-speed sync, and then you won't have to use any filters when shooting flash. For most portrait shooters, that's the reason they use something like an ND filter. Unless you're using this for video, then you still will have to buy an ND filter, so there's that. Speaking of video shooters, they're going to love the manual focus ring. It has about a 150mm throw and it's really smooth, nicely dampened with just enough resistance to where you can get that fine manual focus. I'm a real big fan of it. I noticed a significant increase in sharpness in the 85mm 1.4 compared to the 1.2 from Canon, especially wide open, corner to corner. Now, for a lot of you, ultimate sharpness may not be your thing, but for a lot of us pixel peepers, we want ultimate sharpness even at 1.4. Now open this thing up to 2.8 and it's going to be razor tack sharp from corner to corner. However, I don't buy a lens like this to shoot at 2.8. I like to pretty much keep it opened up at 1.4 at all times unless I'm shooting a bunch of people. One interesting thing that I did find with the 85 Art is that when shooting at 1.4, I compared it to the Canon and it actually seemed to have a lower transmission of light. I did used to own the Sigma 35mm f1.4 Art, and the reason that I sold it and picked up the new Canon version 2 L series 35mm was that the bokeh kind of seemed a little busy. The outer edges were kind of hard. It was just really busy and kind of distracted me from the actual in-focus elements. And I want my out-of-focus elements to just fade away and not distract me at all from the parts that are sharp in the image. On the new 85 Art, I didn't really notice that, and I was pleasantly surprised with that. And I'm kind of in a tough place right now because now I kind of want to sell my Canon. One other reason that I might look at selling the Canon is the focus is extremely accurate and fast. Compare that with the absolutely sloth focuser in the Canon 1.2 85mm, and this thing just looks zippy. Really accurate across all the focusing points on my 1DX Mark II and really fast. Probably 50% faster than the 1.2. So if you are a portrait shooter who is used to shooting in environments where you shoot in continuous focus and people are coming in and out of frame really quickly, or if focusing speed is really important to you, it's definitely worth thinking about. Now, I was shooting my wife for a lifestyle fitness shoot a few months back on the 85mm Canon, and she was running directly towards me, and the Canon had a tough time focusing. Even on the 1DX Mark II, which is an amazing focusing camera, that's pretty much putting the lens in its hardest focusing scenario, coming directly at the camera. And it got about 50% of the shots. She's a really quick runner. The Sigma 85, especially when not backlit, did a lot better. I'd say it got about 80%. So there's a significant increase if you are a shooter who needs to shoot really fast moving subjects and remain accurate at the same time. So that's a big plus and a big win for the new Sigma 85 Art. One last pro that I thought I'd recommend is that finally Sigma included some weather sealing on the back of their lens. That's one of the biggest issues that I have with Sigma and their art series in the past. But on their new 12-24 and the 85, they included weather sealing, and I'm super happy about that. That's really one big issue for me personally when shooting Canon on that 85mm 1.2. It's not weather sealed. Now, Canon L series glass is fantastic when it's weather sealed, and it can get a light drizzle on it. I wouldn't take it out in a downpour or anything like that. But when I'm pairing this with my 1DX Mark II, or if you have a camera that's also pretty heavily weather sealed, you don't want your lens to have no weather sealing on it and then have to deal with that. So kudos to Sigma for including that weather gasket on their new 85mm art. If you're curious about sharpness, let's take a look at some of the photos that I've shot with the 85mm art over the last few weeks. So I was able to get out of the studio because of the break in the rain, and I thought it'd be fun for us in this review to compare the new Sigma 85 Art to the bokeh monster, the Canon 85 1.2. Let's start out by shooting with the 85 Art. We're also shooting with the Profoto B1s in high-speed sync with TTL just for maximum sharpness, and we're gonna shoot everything wide open at 1.4 on the Art, and I'll also shoot at 1.2 and 1.4 on the Canon version. We're shooting here today with my wife, Beth, so keep it easy, guys, in the comments. All right, Beth, look at me here. We're starting off at 1/800th of a second. We've got some beautiful light rimming the back of her here. All right, Beth, look at me. And at 1.4, we are looking really sharp. Let me zoom in here on her eyes. Amazing. All right, get a closer shot here. Go up to 1/1000th of a second. Go to 1/12. I'm gonna go back down to 800th. Get a little bit of a brighter look. And we are looking great. Let's do a close-up shot. One more. Beautiful. So if you guys can see, the background here is pretty ugly. We've got a lamppost back there. There's some benches over here. We're just in a park by my house right now. But with that 1.4 aperture, you're able to absolutely destroy everything in the background. So it's really cool to be able to open it wide up, especially for portraits, to be able to get rid of anything in the background. So now I've got the Canon 85mm f1.2L here on the 1DX Mark II. For many photographers, this is their ultimate portrait lens. So I wanted to see how it compared to the little bit less expensive Sigma 85 Art. So let's see how it does. We're gonna keep it at 1.4 also, and then I'll take it wide open to 1.2 and see how it compares in sharpness, contrast, the bokeh in the background as well. And we'll just see how it does compared to the Sigma 85. Take your lens cap off. All right, Beth, look at me here. Significantly slower focuser. A little bit of a washed out look. I'm gonna close it down to 1/1250th of a second. Awesome, take another one. All right, let's do a couple vertical shots. I'm just using single point autofocus here. Now you saw those shots at f1.4. Let's take it all the way wide open to 1.2 and see how it compares. I'm gonna throw it in continuous because that depth of field is so razor thin. Chimp a little bit. Go all the way to 1/2000th here. 1, 2, 3. All right guys, if you're looking to invest in a top-of-the-line portrait lens, if you're a portrait shooter or someone who absolutely loves the 85mm focal length and wants a really wide aperture, the new Sigma 85mm f1.4 Art Series lens just might be the lens for you. I would highly recommend renting the Sigma compared to the Canon 1.2 and see what you like better in terms of color rendering and that three-dimensional pop that I talked about earlier. But if you don't choose to rent those and you just want to buy this outright, you're gonna love it. Thanks for watching this video, guys. And if you liked it, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to The Brotographer. Also, make sure to check me out on Instagram at @the_Brotographer and head over to thebrotographer.com to read the full review of the new Sigma 85mm f1.4 Art. I'll see you next time. Peace.